All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for the interview. My guest is seated at the table with me, Professor Ken Ife, who is the lead consultant on private sector development, Ecowas Commission. Good day, Prof, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, let's get started. Let's start from home first, because I know there are also some kind of issues around Africa or around Ecowas. We'll come to that in a short while. But it's been a while since I've spoken to you, Prof. You know, and I think the last time that we spoke, it was about Ecowas. It was about the ECO, talking about, you know, the feasibility of it and all of that. But we'll come back to that in a short while. Speak to me about the domestic economic mood. What's the economic mood right now of the nation?
It is it's very tough times. We are going through very tough times, but we are working hard. When I say we are working hard, you can see the president announcing a transition from 2020 vision ERGP to a new vista of opportunities. So you can see that they are thinking, and I hope we'll find time to analyze why they are doing what they are doing and how robust those planning frameworks are going to be in fundamentally restructuring our economy. For 50 years we've been talking about diversification of our economy, and for that 50 years we are locked down to a fossil energy based economic development. I have not seen any program that looked at structural change, moving away from a fossil-based development planning, economic development planning, to a non-fossil-based bioeconomy development plan. I haven't seen that. And this is the first time it is entering into the program. And I think it has a lot of promise because it combines with digital economy and then chart a brand new future for the country.
Okay, since you brought me to that in terms of Nigeria Agenda 2050, let's X-ray Vision 2020, because everyone or most analysts, I guess at that time to when that was launched, perhaps you would have also been very optimistic. Speak to me about chronicle for me Vision 2020.
Okay, Vision 2020, it was a very good document, but it was a good document at its time. It didn't address the issue of structural change, which I have just mentioned to you. It says that by 2020, we will get to a GDP of 650 billion. That makes us number 20. But I couldn't actually find the trajectory of the components that will actually take us off to that 650 billion. Then it talks about financing. But for example, I just give you one example. On infrastructure financing, it says what is needed, and correctly so, is 35 trillion naira. Federal government will bring 11 trillion. State governments will bring 9 trillion. Private sector, 15 trillion. It identified the need for private sector to get right into this and drive this. But you know, as well as I do, that the states don't have that money. And federal government is struggling to find that order of resource. But the political will to involve the private sector is there. You've seen how we have delivered power to the private sector, DISCOs and GENCOs, despite all the asymmetries, litany of asymmetries that we have there. You've seen how in aviation some have come in, and many more are likely to come in. You see government trying to offload some of their businesses that they gotten themselves into. So all of those are sending the right signal, but the money is not there. And it did not fundamentally address the structural change that you wanted from a fossil fuel-based economy and resources like natural gas, oil, and all of that, and metal. It hasn't moved to a new structure, industrial structure, that will work well with the fourth industrial revolution and deliver what we are looking for it to deliver. And I do recognize that there are some things that are important for diversification. They may not necessarily, whilst they will generate growth and increase in GDP, may not necessarily give you the foreign exchange that you require to maintain stability. But when you go to bioeconomy that we are bringing in now, it will give you the foreign exchange that you need. It will employ almost everybody in the country. Oil and gas and mining, we cannot employ everybody. But that has the potential to mop up everybody's employment. So that's some of the things that, to that extent, Vision 2020 tried as much as it could. But don't forget that in December 2014, our GDP rose to $575 billion.
Because we rebased.
Because we rebased, but oil was contributing heavily, over $70 per barrel. But then, 6 months down the line, we lost 60% of our oil revenue, and we slipped into recession. And it crashed. The GDP came down to about $330 billion. So is that uncertainty in the GDP that is the uncertainty brought by oil? That is what is a problem for us. So we have to look at the structural change component to ensure that, I don't want to be academic. If you look at innovation is pigeonholed in science and technology. Very good document, but there's no pathway for funding it. So there's no pathway for research of the research and development and academia, output of academia, to work in knowledge partnership with private sector and government to move all these inventions through incubation, through processing, through that to the market. We haven't got that mechanism, no funding mechanism, so it just sits there. But in this dispensation, we are looking at how to bring digital economy, and you've seen the result of digital economy in the last result. That is moved to 14% of GDP, ahead of trade, ahead of oil and gas, and its growth rate is 15%.
Don't you think that was also fueled by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well,
ICT,
of course, it has. But our job now is to consolidate that growth, to bring it to the center, bring it with bioeconomies. That's why I'm coordinating those particular areas in the new planning framework. I'm coordinating the bioeconomy, the digital economy, and the science and technology innovation. So we want to bring innovation to the center and have a national innovation policy, but a framework for delivering it and making sure that it is mainstream to all other sectors. Nollywood needs innovation, bioeconomy is innovation, digital is innovation. There's innovation in everything that we do. So we want to make sure that we bring it and embed it in the fabric of development planning and economic development, so that we can affect Nigeria compared to all our comparator nations, the successful ones. The only difference is that technology has defined and influenced all factors of production of these economies and their means of exchange. In our own, it is just on the side. So what we are going to do now is to put it in the center stage, make sure that the funding framework is robust, and not only that is a national in outlook, we'll get the president involved, because the president is involved in oil at the moment, but he has to be involved in a new structure. So get the funding framework, get the methodology for the energy, for the transfer partnership, knowledge transfer partnership, and then so that private sector can be in the middle of it. And then make sure that all other things that can make a huge difference are on board. But as you are doing that, you are guaranteeing food security, you must do that. You are protecting our environment, you must do that. And the third leg of the triangle is that you are going to diversify the economy, build competitiveness, especially export competitiveness, so that you can affect that revenue, forex revenue, that is turbulence, that brings all the turbulence in our economy.
Hello YouTubers, welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle, just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website. Prof, I've just carefully listened to your submission in the last 2 minutes, and it seems you're very optimistic about Nigeria Agenda 2050. I want to be so optimistic about that Nigeria Agenda 2052 because the Vision 2020, when it was planned, when it was launched, I think it was launched under Obasanjo, if I'm not mistaken, or But
2010.
yes, but we had other administrations come and go. President Jonathan came up with, I think, his transformation agenda at that time. Even before President Yaradua passed, there was the 7-point agenda, I think, by President Yaradua. President Buhari also came up with his economic recovery and growth plan, which is 2017 to 2020. Now, how optimistic are you with this 2050 agenda? Because it seems that we are always very quick and we're always very optimistic when we create plans. I remember when it was also Vision 2020, so many good things were talked about during that Vision 2020. I don't even know if it was even effected, apart from the innovation that I saw in the financial sector, which I must acknowledge. Because the financial system is like took Vision 2020 and ran with it.
Correct.
What we're seeing with payment system, what we're seeing with what's happening, BVN and all of that, on track. But the rest of the economy did not follow that through. So what will make Vision 2050 different? Because we have an economic history that when another president comes or another administration, they come up with their own.
No, remember that the Vision 2020 was a longish term vision, but in the interim, various administrations will create short-term ones, but hopefully aligning it with the 2020. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they were short-term that lived with them. And then in the case of ERGP, we collapsed into recession, and then we needed a plan because nobody was ready to talk to Nigeria in 2016.
But did you see that
because
ERGP,
they wanted a plan to get out of recession. So we now had a plan from 2017 to 2020, still within the ambit of the Vision 2020, but sorting out the last 3 years of it. So now both plans have come to an end. And we need a successor for the ERGP, which is the medium-term development plan for 21 to 25, still continuing that tradition. And even though it's 5 years, you will still have MTEF of 3 years rolling plan inside it. And then you have a much longer term vision to connect to Africa Union 2063, many longish term plans, 2030, So that's why we have that, the longer term vision. But I have to say it again. The critical difference from all of the plans that you have mentioned and enumerated is I have not seen any of them that proposes and delivers a plan for a structural change. That is the industry structure. In other words, they've taken it for granted that our economy and our economic development and planning will continue to be based on fossil fuel, fossil energy. We didn't have a plan to move away and to non-fossil energy-based economic development agenda and bioeconomy development agenda that will save our environment, that will sustain our food security program and then create the opportunities that we need, not only to diversify our economy, but also to create that competitiveness and generate export revenue to support the oil export revenue. Because at the moment, up until now, and from then, oil still continues to account for 90% of our forex. And that is where the trouble lies, that we still haven't seen potential replacement or addition to the forex revenue. So whenever that forex revenue is tampered with, which is inevitable, then we have turbulence in the whole of the economy.
So in this Agenda 2050, it seeks for us to achieve the vision, or it seems to correct some of the anomalies we have.
It does address them.
Epileptic power supply, weak infrastructure, and institutions too. Structural transformation of the economy, which you've been talking about.
Correct.
It also hopes to develop the human capital along the lines, health, education, and what have you. But do you see this? Do you see us achieving that between now and the next 30 years?
Oh, of course, without that. Let me give you an example. Germany, the bioeconomic contribution to their GDP is 3.2 trillion euros. And if you look at the breakdown, 1 trillion of that money is on our familiar territory, agriculture and forestry, biopharmaceutical. Biopharmaceutical is 42 trillion. billion. The first one, aggregate, is about 32 billion. Then you have food, beverages. Beverages, 170 billion euro. Then you have consumer products. That's $202 billion. Now, bioenergy, which is the one we are working on, bioenergy contributes 466 billion euro. And then look at, these are all our natural territory. I'm not even talking about the other 2 trillion. I'm talking about our natural territory. This is where you have the natural agro ecology, tropical swamp, tropical forest, swamp, mangrove swamp, Sahel savanna, Sudan savanna. All of them are here. And look at countries that are all there, right in snow and all of that are generating all this economy based on science and technology, working on molecular biology, plant and animal processes, and using them to create products and services across all sectors, not just in agriculture, across all sectors. The rest of the breakdown I haven't given you is where they are making huge money in chemical industry, in engineering, in electronics. They are producing products, brand new, different products. And don't forget that in this area of biotechnology, we have nothing to import, but everything to export. Why is all these other fossil fuel-based technologies like oil, gas, and minerals can't employ all of us? How many? Can they employ 1 million people? But biomass will employ everybody.
Okay, Prof, just hold on a bit. We know we have these potentials, and we've had these potentials for a very long time. I think in Bauchi State has lithium, if I'm not mistaken. Lithium is used in making battery. We have all these potentials. What is the missing link for us to achieve these things? In the last how many years? Nigeria will be 60 in the next few weeks. So what is the missing link? Because all the government or all the administration have these things that you're saying in mind. We would like to make Nigeria great. We would like to, President wants to get out 100 million people out of poverty within the next 10 years. We would like to do this, we would like to do that. But what is the missing link that we've not been able to achieve this?
Besides what I have described to you as the critical difference, which is failure to articulate structural change from those two regimes, there are specific challenges per sector. You just talked about uranium, reactive minerals, and all of that. We have them, 44 minerals. Less than 10 of these minerals are generating 20% of South Africa's GDP. It's no doubt. But I have to tell you, if we have, you have to get investors in. It's like oil. You can't get any investor to go and borrow money to drill a well if they have not seen any 3D seismic to tell them the volume of oil that is underground and all that stuff. They need to know what reserve are you putting our money to. If you're going to mine gold or platinum or that, where is the 3D seismic study? Where is the valuation? What tells you how much of it that is on the ground so that at a particular mining rate, this could last for 40 years or 50 years? If you don't have that, all you are going to be concerned with, you and artisanal miners will be doing that business. But you can't get big time people to come in and then you talk to them about value addition, which is a second one before you can create the jobs in the country. So that's the major one. Then the capital there must be flow of capital. And of course, flow of capital comes with investors. So the investors have to have the confidence and have the certified reserve evaluations and all the environment, all the enabling environment for them to invest in this. If they don't, and conflict, you send some people to go there and then they get kidnapped, you end up paying and settling. So there are conflicts. You can't even do anything if you don't have that atmosphere of peace, political stability, and then conflict and security.
Now you brought me to the other question which I wanted to ask, because however optimistic we are about 2050 agenda, we must also put some things in place. Nigeria's economy has been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. We're just gradually recovering, a growth rate of about 2%, which is not enough for the way our population is growing. We've been talking about seeing some kind of reforms in different sectors for us to be able to resuscitate and come out of, the paralysis that we have had, at least in the last few years. What do you think that should be done as a matter of urgency, even as we battle the pandemic? What I mean economically, so that at least this Nigeria Agenda 2050, when people are looking at us outside, they'll be like, okay, Nigeria is getting the fundamental things in place. You've just talked about security, which is a very hopeless situation right now in the country. I know a few people, when they park their cars in broad daylight, even in Abuja here, stolen. Things are taken. I would also say the same for a few other states across the country. So you've spoken about security. What other things do we need, that the government needs to attend to as a matter of urgency?
Well, first of all, because we are deeply mired in COVID-19 crisis, we need to have quantitative monetary and fiscal measures to expand this. Look, 84% of, if you look at the consumption side of our balance, of our GDP, 84% of our GDP is household consumption. Government is 5.4 to 5.7%. Then you have investment. So it tells you that it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, what you manufacture, what you produce. If the buying power is not there, they won't be able to buy them.
Yes.
So tomorrow you may have a huge growth of manufacturing, and then they post 20% growth, and then nobody buys them. So quantitatively, you have to make sure that at the household level, at the MSME level, at the informal level, they must have liquidity, so that you do not allow complete decimation of our aggregate demand. So you look at aggregate demand staying up, and then aggregate supply coming up. They go together. What do
you need to boost aggregate demand? What do you need to increase that purchasing power?
Okay. Now, we have quantitative measures going on. For example, the monetary policy authorities have 3.5 trillion on the table, and we have 2.3 trillion on the economic sustainability plan. Although 1.1 trillion of that is going to come from CBN, yes. But there is 500 billion that can scramble from all sorts of funds in the TSA region. Yeah, but how quickly is this money going to hit the ground? Because you know about 774,000 jobs, 1,000 per local government. Are the jobs arrived yet? But 6 months ago, they provisioned this. But have it arrived? We don't know what is going on with the politics. It hasn't arrived. The moment, if that money doesn't hit the ground, they can buy anything. Now, you've seen that the government tried very much to keep all their staff, even with the minimum wage being paid. We can't say that of the private sector. The private sector were decimated, over 30-something million jobs lost, and they're not getting direct relief. In America, they are giving them how much money? How much they giving them?
$1,200.
In Germany, Germany has extended their own for 2 years. They spent 60% of their GDP on supporting the industry so that they maintain the demand. And for if the demand is maintained, people have money to buy things, people will produce things. Do you know what I mean? And then we haven't got that. CBN dropped 50 billion. Maybe now 60 billion, and then they left, and then they were chasing the same people I'm talking about. They're necessary to get there, but that money is small. More should come.
From
and I'm so happy.
Money come from where, Prof?
No, this intervention fund. They're going to pay back for that money, but it's at 5%.
Yes.
So it's an intervention fund.
But you're saying it should be expanded.
No, they should be doing more, because that is the money that is touching the base of the pyramid.
I'm saying, where's that more going to come from?
Demand.
Where's the more going to come from?
No, the intervention fund.
From where should the CBN print money?
No,
we're seeing other people. Yes, they do print money. Central banks across the world print money, because even from 2008, 2009 financial crisis, we saw them abandoning even their traditional policy tools. Prof, you know what I'm talking about.
Listen, Nancy. CBN is lending this money, it's not giving it out as
It's not a grant, yes.
Secondly, the commercial banks have almost 5 trillion held at the central bank as cash reserve ratio, which CBN has been asking them, come and take this and lend at 9% for 7 years, lend this money out to the private sector. And with all due respect, CBN has actually moved, their measures have moved credit flow to the private sector by over 20%. So there is success there. But we have to do more, because the challenge on recovery is how quickly you can ramp up demand. Because if the demand is not there, aggregate demand is not there, whatever you do on the supply side is going to have limited success.
You know why I was asking that question, Prof? Because I also do know that our total debt stock has risen to about 31 trillion naira. You know, the IMF, we had a loan from the IMF, $3.4 billion, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're second to South Africa on the continent in terms of the IMF loan from the Rapid Credit Financing Instrument. South Africa was
We're a
giving
bigger
4.3.
economy than South Africa anyway.
We are bigger.
You always look at this
Hold
things as a
on,
proportion of
Prof. We are
GDP.
bigger with what? Does it mean that if you're big,
are
you are
GDP.
better? No, Prof. Does
We
it
are
mean that
4
if you're
times their population.
Prof, does it mean that if you are bigger, you are healthier?
No, by
But
any measure,
South Africa is the most advanced, is more industrialized than we are. If
I don't dispute that, but Nigeria is a much, much bigger economy.
with a poor
The
population.
potential of Nigeria is unbelievable.
Prof, just hold on a minute there and don't give me potential this morning, because we've been talking about potential for years. For 60 years of Nigeria's life as an entity, we've been talking about potentials. Can we get from potentials to reality?
But we are making progress.
How much
to
progress?
have kept this country together as one nation is a huge achievement. Many countries, Nigeria is a quarter of Africa in population. We are 4 times UK. We are nearly half of Europe, the whole of Europe, 28 countries. It's not easy task to keep these units together and then to have the barrage. We're a nation at war. Every part of Nigeria is at war. You have northeast, you know what's going on. Northwest is banditry. South, all south, north central is major clash between our food production systems, the headers and the crop production. So in the midst of that, we are hopelessly dependent on a monocultural economy, which is oil. And we're saying that until we move away in a structural way from that, only then would we have a chance to stabilize this country for good. And you cannot denigrate the potential that the country represents. So I respect South Africa. COVID-19, there are 10 times more infection in South Africa than
Yes, I
10
know.
times
I
more
know
deaths.
the economy.
I'm not trying.
Yes, I know the economy of South Africa is not also in good shape. But I'm also talking about structurally. You know, the economy of South Africa, Tito Mboweni, who is the finance minister, said that it will contract about 7%. The data we got from South Africa just about 2 weeks showed us that the economic, more than 50% contraction. Okay, perhaps if you're talking on an unadjusted terms. But where I'm actually driving to is that let us begin to see the building blocks. Let our foundations be right.
Yes.
So that
Which
in the
is
next
what we are
50
correcting.
years,
That is being corrected now.
so that in the next 50 years, God willing, we will still be alive.
Of course we are.
Yes, I will be there and say, okay, I was talking about this 50 years ago, and I'm glad that we're able to make it. Now, let's go to the ECO situation, because we just have a few minutes to go. Ecowas has halted the ECO launch to announce a new date. We don't know the new date yet. But President Muhammadu Buhari expressed his views concerning the Francophone member countries adopting the ECO as their currency to replace the CFA franc. We had discussed this some time ago. Where do you see ECOWAS with the launch of ECO being suspended and the replacement of the CFA for ECO? Where do you see it?
No, what was suspended is not the steps taken by Francophone. What is suspended is our intention to unify the currencies in 2020. Because nobody. In fact, the macroeconomic convergence criteria have widened. You know, you've seen what is going on with debt. The debt of various countries have widened. The inflation is everything has widened. So even if the French component didn't do what they did, it was still not anywhere near having a single currency in 2020. So that's why I don't want to lose sleep about what the Francophone did, because they had a date with destiny and they had to take for example, if we say, okay, nothing can happen from there until we are in a position to converge. If it takes us another 20 years, you are still going to tell them. They've been sitting on the wings for 20 years, waiting for this day that they are going to exercise monetary policy independence.
From
so
France.
they've done that. They've done that. So the agenda is just, let's continue with, we have very robust 10 macroeconomic, and even if you don't use it to achieve currency, use it, integrate it into your development planning, so that we can be seeing when you hope to converge on all those they represent international best practices in macroeconomic management. So I think they're very useful indicators, and we should work with those and imbibe them into, and I'm glad that the president, when he was launching the 2050, he mentioned, he said, we should be looking at what AFCFTA means.
yes.
We should be looking at how we strategically align with Africa Union 2060, Agenda 2060, Ecowas Agenda 2050, Nigerian Agenda 2050. So the president has his finger on the button. We need to bring all these things we are committed to, integrate them into our planning. And in the same way, we should bring the benchmarks of 10 macroeconomic convergence criteria, integrate them in our monetary policy planning and our modeling, our macroeconomic modeling, so that we are seen to be heading towards convergence, not talking about the politics of convergence, heading towards it, converging the economy. And the UMOA bloc should also look at individual member states, because at the moment, only Togo meets all the criteria. All the others should strive to converge their economy. Otherwise, you're going to, even if we move like Europe did, what Greece did will still haunt us.
Okay, Prof, just as we end this interview, how do you think that oil price dynamics will play out in all of this?
The what?
Oil price dynamics, because even if we have an Agenda 2050, we are talking about weaning ourselves off oil, but how much of oil price would also determine this development for us?
Okay, let me tackle it. You see, the highest revenue we have raised in oil is, should we say, $70 billion? The highest. It's about $70 billion in, I think, in the 2010, around that time of Obasanjo. That's when we had that kind of money. Now, if the visions of Nigeria, I've seen what about PCW or something.
PwC.
Yeah, PwC. They say that by 2050, our GDP will be 6.4 trillion, making us the number 10 in the world. 2030 is 1.64 trillion. Now, if oil at its all-time high is 70 billion, now, when our economy moves in 2030 to 1.64 trillion, assuming oil is still 10% of our GDP, assuming it's declining, it's now 8.9. If it is 10% of our GDP and continue to be so, where is it going to get the $160 billion that is 10% of 1.6?
Okay.
1.63. So the answer to this is that we are a non-starter if that is going to be the basis for going forward. So we're going to change the structure. And I've told you that I've never seen anything in the previous plans that looked at structural change.
Okay, I think
how we're going to move away from that dependence and then create new structure that will unlock the potentials of our economy.
Okay.
And the potential is huge.
I think we should leave it at that, Prof. Thank you very much for coming on the show. All right, I've been speaking with Professor Ken Ife, who is the lead consultant on private sector development, Ecowas Commission. He's also the co-chair of EU-Africa Business Task Force. That's where we'll leave it today. Please join us again tomorrow. And don't forget to go to all our social media pages and channels for more. I am Nnaji. Continue to keep safe. COVID-19 pandemic is real. See you tomorrow. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.